A lot of sports writers grew up with the same North Star. To work for Sports Illustrated was a dream job for so many, and even after the company had lost much of its luster, there was still a certain pride writers felt when working there. Here's a short clip of former SI writer Jessica Smetana on Dan Le Batard's show expressing that exact sentiment. You can feel the passion she had for the dilapidated company, and at certain points it almost seems like she's fighting back tears.
This iconic brand that for many of us was our dream job. You dream of working for a company like Sports Illustrated when you want to work in sports media. I felt like, wow, I've really accomplished something in my career. The first time I ever had a magazine story published, I bought like 50 of them the next day and just gave them to all my friends. It's just a really cool place to work in something that feels like an accomplishment.
The fate of a once very storied magazine, massive layoffs, some immediately, others in a short time, with the potential for the entire staff to be gone in 3 months. Is this the end of Sports Illustrated as we know it?
It's about time you and I had a little talk.
Well, what's up, Dad?
It's about these magazines you've been hiding. Now tell me the truth. Where did they come from?
Mom's got them for me.
Your mother?
She knows how much I love Sports Illustrated.
Sports Illustrated.
When Sports Illustrated started, it was considered a joke by many people in the publishing industry. For the first decade, those jokes would continue as the first sports magazine lost millions of dollars. But a slight change in strategy would set off a firestorm that would catapult Sports Illustrated to iconic status. And that's exactly where it stayed for decades on end, the pinnacle of American sports media. Every week, millions of readers ran gleefully to the mailbox in anticipation for SI's latest edition. If you were lucky, it would come on Thursday, but if not, sorry bro, you had to wait an extra day. Sports Illustrated was the gold standard for around 50 years. Low-key, it was a precursor to my channel and the whole sports YouTube niche. A deeper look into sports topics that don't have to be mainstream, mixing real-life stories with a unique perspective, and talking sports with a high level of respect for the subject. And what they've meant to the sports media industry is immeasurable. But life has this tendency to go in cycles, and the life of Sports Illustrated wasn't any different. Like I said, they started as a joke for their first 10 years, and over the last 10, they've returned to the wrong form. From a failure to embrace digital in the internet age, to over-embracing tech and having AI write your articles, the magazine once known for deep, thoughtful journalism was now pumping out basic chat GPT filler. This all culminated in its most recent round of layoffs, when SI's parent company announced that it was set to lay off most, if not all, of the Sports Illustrated staff. Within the next 90 days, they would all be gone. But to understand the true gravity of the fall of Sports Illustrated, let's take a deeper look at how the whole thing went down. The Sports Illustrated name goes back to the 30s, but the 1936 magazine, started by Stuart Sheffield, wasn't the SI we all know. The original Sports Illustrated focused on golf, skiing, and tennis, the more elite class sports not available to most readers. So Sheffield published an issue every single month from 1936 to 1942, at which point he decided it wasn't worth it to continue and he sold the SI name to Dell Publications. The Sports Illustrated name would be sold several times, but as we'll see through the story, every owner's not created equal. SI's greatest leader, who we're just about to discuss, was able to see past the conventions of his time. This allowed him to blaze a path into the future, in complete contrast to later SI owners. Those later bosses would romanticize the past, which is at the heart of the reason SI might not have a future. So there's 4 teams left, all with the same goal: win a couple more games and make it to Las Vegas. And I teamed up with DraftKings, an official partner of the NFL, to help you go as far as you can go. Right now, new customers who bet $5 will get an extra $200 in bonus bets instantly. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code FlemLo for your shot at the crown. One more time, new customers who bet just $5 will get $200 in bonus bets instantly. And I ain't trying to tell you how to use your bonus bets, but you could take that $200 and do a parlay. Now, if you already signed up with DraftKings like me, you can actually get what's called a no sweat bet, meaning you can get a bonus bet back if your same game parlay or a same game parlay extra does not hit. Now, if sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry, you can still join in on the fun through DraftKings Daily Fantasy. There they have different contests and you can compete for the opportunity to win cash prizes. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use my promo code FlemLo, bet $5 on any wager, and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code FlemLo, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Later bosses would romanticize the past, which is at the heart of the reason SI might not have a future.
Here's an interesting machine of the modern printing industry. It is putting together the sections of pages of a magazine in the right order for binding.
During the 1940s run, Sports Illustrated couldn't cover current events because the production schedules took too long. Basically, they were limited by the equipment of their time, which in the early days made it hard for the magazine to take off. But by the 1950s, technology advanced to the point where it was possible to publish magazines on a weekly basis.
Printing today is for everybody. Newspapers, books, magazines by the millions, well-designed and mass-produced.
In theory, this would allow magazines to cover more current events, but nobody was crazy enough to actually try it. Enter Henry Luce, multimedia tycoon. He was affluent and well-connected in the early 1920s. He and a friend quit their jobs at just 23 years old, and at that same young age, they would form Time Inc. In 1923, they published Time magazine. In 1929, Luce co-founded Fortune magazine. In 1936, Luce bought Life magazine, and 20 years after that, he bought Sports Illustrated. Now, because he's developed his own magazines for years, when he bought a new one, he'd always have a vision for their future. SI has recently been bought with the sole purpose of squeezing the life out of the brand. When Henry Luce bought the magazine, it was the exact opposite. He would come in and breathe new life into the publication. One of the changes he made was featuring popular athletes on the cover, and this was one of those traditions that would stand the test of time. This is something they started doing in the 1950s that 70 years later athletes still wanted to be a part of. The official first edition of Sports Illustrated featured MLB Hall of Famer Eddie Matthews. Eddie Matthews is the only player to play for the Braves in all three cities, Boston, Milwaukee, and Atlanta. This image is from their time as the Milwaukee Braves. From a game the Braves would win 4-0. That same year, they'd go on to win the World Series, so even the very first covers got a cool story behind it. Now, earlier I said Sports Illustrated was the precursor to sports YouTube, and ironically, this cover might have been the world's first clickbait, since this first edition doesn't even feature a story on Matthews or on the Braves. They was just on the cover. I guess the image was so dope, they just said to hell with it. Now, the magazine definitely had its growing pains, but over time they discovered the diamonds that was hidden inside the rock. But every step along the way, people wanted to turn back, having no clue how close they truly were. Now, when the owner of so many prestigious magazines wanted to do a sports magazine, he was met with skepticism. Sports were seen as beneath serious journalism, and Luce's advisors begged him to kill the idea. When Luce asked the team to help him develop a new name for the property, the disrespect for sports fans just leaped off the page. It just shined right through some of the names they came up with, like Sweat Socks, or even worse, Dummy Magazine. The thing is, Henry Luce wasn't even a sports fan himself, just a guy who was able to spot a hole in the market while also having the resources and the experience to fill that space, and that's exactly what he did. Someone without the same resources, access, and influence would have probably been shut down before the magazine got going, because according to some articles, Luce sunk $30 million into SI before they turned a profit. The 1920s has been called the golden age of sports. That's when spectator sports really started to gain popularity. They got so popular so fast that they were able to survive the Great Depression and even a couple of big-time wars. Over the years, their popularity would continue to grow. And Henry Luce knew it was just a matter of time before the sports industry grew into an all-out monster, and he wanted to own this prime real estate. So for 12 long years, he lost money on the project, but made so much from his other endeavors he could offset the losses. Behind his back, people laughed. He was sinking all his money into a pipe dream. Some thought that this might be his undoing, but he waited. And he waited, and he poured more resources until the time came. And by the 1960s, one great move and one stroke of luck sent the magazine soaring. The great move was to hire Andre Laguerre as the magazine's managing editor. The France native had an appreciation for really good writing. He brought a certain standard to the magazine that would set it apart. He also better aligned SI with both potential readers and potential sponsors, which is obviously important. He did that by dialing back all the golf, tennis, and fishing stories and hyper-focusing Sports Illustrated on basketball, baseball, football, hockey, traditionally known as the Big Four American sports. This now aligned the magazine with the most popular athletes of the day, rising stars in the 4 major sports. And that obviously meshed well with the covers they've been doing, a natural progression that unlocked the magazine's true potential. Now, the French also have an appreciation for the female body, so you shouldn't be shocked to find out that Laguerre is also the one who came up with Sports Illustrated's greatest sales tactic. SI's annual swimsuit issues put a whole new set of eyeballs on the magazine. Laguerre hired new photographers such as Walter Hughes and Neil Leifer, and these 2 photographers helped change the way sports photography is viewed, as today they're known as 2 of the greatest photographers of all time. They took sports photography and turned it into art. So many iconic images captured in real time, with this crazy deep level of artistic expression that just hadn't been attached to sports photography in the past. Leifer actually shot this, one of the greatest sports photos of all time, with Ali standing over Linston screaming for Sonny to get up. But SI wasn't perfect and didn't always make the right decision, cause originally this iconic photo didn't even make the cover. Maybe you like some of these recent photos of Westbrook and John Morant, with the overhead view and the emphasis on the shadows. I remember seeing these a while back and thinking these are really dope. But now I can see Walter Hughes' influence written all over this. Now mix these type of photographers with truly great writing and you get a product that's miles ahead of all the competition. So that all came together thanks to one great move. But what about the stroke of luck SI caught during the 60s?
With the offset press, newspapers gained the advantage of improved definition, superior color capability, far cleaner operation, and above all, faster compositing time.
In 1965, offset printing began, and needless to say, when you run a magazine, any advancements in printing technology, if employed correctly, can have a major impact on your business. For SI, it meant 2 things: higher quality colors and, maybe more important, faster color printing. Since this new tech allowed them to print color pages overnight, they could fully commit to the vision Luce had when he bought the company, to cover current events with both the best writing and the best images on a weekly basis. Sadly, only 2 years after this magazine that he'd raised from an infant finally reached its prime, Henry Luce would pass away at 68 years old, and he passed with the top magazine in 4 major categories. But his quote-unquote low-class sports magazine remained in high regard longer than any of his other supposedly more prestigious magazines. So all the dummies that wanted to call it dummy had to go and eat their words. But a few years later, SI would suffer yet another blow, as the man who really saved the company would retire from his position. In 1974, Andre Laguerre decided to retire from Sports Illustrated. And sadly, just 4 years later, he too would pass away at the age of 63. But through the rest of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and even early 2000s, Sports Illustrated stayed on top of the game. But as the digital age approached, SI was one of them companies that romanticized the old days and refused to adapt. Around that time, another one of these massive type companies famously failed to adapt to the changing time. In 2000, home video behemoth Blockbuster passed on the chance to buy Netflix. That mistake would soon thereafter sink their ship, as they passed on actually owning the company that was shortly after put them out of business, one of the toughest pills any company has ever had to swallow. Ironically, in the 80s, Time Inc., which was the home of Sports Illustrated, actually had a chance to buy ESPN. But that missed opportunity wouldn't destroy them as directly as what happened to Blockbuster a few decades later. Instead, Sports Illustrated would have plenty of time to start the adaptation process to digital media. But ironically, the attitude once held by Luce's advisors, you know, the ones who basically thought sports was beneath them, but now a similar attitude was being held by the leaders of a magazine that was almost called dummy back in the day. At this point, Sports Illustrated was highly regarded for its writing and images, and rightfully so, but they now held this really rigid attitude about print. They refused to approach the new digital media with the same serious that early writers and photographers approached sports with. Those writers and photographers got down off their high horse and brought those skill sets to a new medium. But leadership is important, and I want to be clear, they were still putting out great content at this point, but you also need that visionary to see over the horizon, or you just end up being the leaders of an outdated medium. They threw only minimal resources to something as simple as a top-notch website. This would be their undoing. And while it's probably not hard to just guess and come to that conclusion, I wanted to know what the people who worked there thought brought on the demise. And it didn't take a lot of scrolling through these old articles to find a perfect source for multiple quotes. In 2019, Mitchell Bannon of the Sports Broadcast Journal interviewed 6 former SI writers, and when he asked where they all thought the company went wrong, every answer contained the words digital or internet. I think SI failed to adjust and adapt to the internet, and it's never recovered. I think Sports Illustrated, like many other sports publications, was a little slow to embrace the digital world. The print-digital divide persisted too long at SI, and the company as a whole failed to understand until too late that a magazine is as much its website as it is its paper copy. For me, the biggest screw up was the website, or lack thereof. Why does SI's site continue to lag? Why isn't it amazing? For some reason that was never fixed, and as a result, young people looked elsewhere. It breaks my heart. I do wish Sports Illustrated embraced the internet sooner and found a way to create a digital equivalent of the glorious Sports Illustrated magazine. 6 separate SI writers coming to the same conclusion. See, during its inception, SI hit the market early, before sports journalism would be taken serious. They cornered the market while the market was small, and just remained in position until the market exploded. But now they'd become the opposite. They was too slow to act, and allowed the competition to establish itself on the internet. And the further we got into the internet age, the further SI will fall behind the competition. As overall magazine sales just dropped lower and lower, SI tried to make a late push into the internet age. But a lack of understanding the medium, a lack of respecting the medium, and a hesitation in the beginning put them in a bad place.
I noticed that the Time magazine that I saw yesterday in the doctor's waiting room was only 60 pages. You know, they used to be 90, 100 pages, so that just kind of shows you what's happened to the magazine business. The magazine business continues to be in a secular decline in terms of circulation and print. The question is, can digital save the magazine business?
Time for Time Warner. The company is in talks to sell most of its magazine titles to Meredith in hopes of moving ahead from its 40% decrease in sales.
In 2018, the Meredith Corporation purchased Time Inc., parent company to many IPs, including Sports Illustrated. But this time it wasn't purchased by somebody looking to grow the brand. It wasn't sold to someone who had a vision for the company. It was instead sold to a company who at that point was only looking to cash in on the brand that had been built over 70 years through blood, sweat, and tears. Artistic struggles, you know what I'm saying? Real work was put into this. A year after the Time Inc. purchase, Meredith turned around and sold SI to a company called Authentic Brands. Authentic Brands then licensed Sports Illustrated to another company called Maven, also known as the Arena Group. The Arena Group only held on to the IP for a few years, but during that time, Sports Illustrated got dragged through the mud. The Arena Group was trying to make quick cash on the SI brand and didn't have the necessary cash flow to truly run SI. SI's demise has been attached to a lot of political crusades, but the truth is the cash flow was tight from the beginning. That's why right after they acquired the brand, next thing you know, they was doing massive layoffs. They dropped publication from weekly down to bi-weekly, and then from bi-weekly to monthly. Bro, the writing was on the wall. They got rid of long-time writers and replaced them with high school temp writers who would work for free. That's how little respect they had for what their employees did. And when those types own the brand, they're gonna squeeze the life out of it. In 2023, the once highly regarded prestigious sports writing had been reduced to AI filler, as SI got caught publishing AI articles, and they did it under the guise that these were real humans. What happened was the parent company contracted out certain projects to get it done for cheaper, since they didn't care where the writing came from. Well, the company they contracted simply used AI to throw the articles together and send them back to the parent company. It goes back to that old adage, you get what you pay pay for, and Sports Illustrated got terrible articles with no depth or perspective, and a major embarrassment that only served to speed up the already inevitable demise. Andre Laguerre probably turned over in his grave. Back in the day, you had to impress him with your writing to get on. Now they just wanted somebody or something to fill up the page with semi-legible letters. The only thing this new Sports Illustrated had in common with its roots was that during the first decade, people thought it was a joke. And now in the worst way possible, they'd come full circle, and it's really a shame. It's such a shame, bro. The Arena Group only cared to attach the SI logo on anything that paid them some money, like resorts and swimsuits, which aren't terrible ideas in and of themselves, but they did it while consciously eroding the actual product. They would pretend that they wanted to build on the brand. They knew the brand would die. They had no interest in sustaining it, adapting it, and growing it into the future. Instead, they just wanted to siphon all the life force from the brand like a glutton vampire with the munchies. But as the life force dwindled down to almost nothing, the new parent company eventually skipped out on a payment. That triggered Authentic Brands to spring back into action and terminate the licensing agreement with the Arena Group. That then triggered the Arena Group, the current parent company, to make the announcement that the entire staff was getting fired or laid off immediately. But those covered by the union, they had to give them 90 days, but they announced that at the end of that, they too would be fired. All that's left of Sports Illustrated is echoes from the past. I remember watching Sports Illustrated for Kids tapes back in the day. I remember seeing Ken Griffey Jr., Deion Sanders, and almost feeling like I knew them and could achieve what they had. The magazines were iconic. Until this day, the thought of making that cover put butterflies in my stomach. The fact that they took something that meant so much to so many people and turned it into a joke both pisses me off and makes me really sad. A lot of sports writers grew up with the same North Star. To work for Sports Illustrated was a dream job for so many. On January 19, 2024, that North Star fell, bro, straight out of the sky, leaving many sports journalists unemployed, displaced. A heartbreaking truth that's gotta be tough to come to grips with. But that talent, skill, and passion still burns bright deep in the hearts of the true journalists. They won't just fade away, they'll continue their output. Some will pivot to podcasts, others will shift over to YouTube. Maybe some will take their writing in a brand new direction, into their own stories with their own characters and their own plot. And they'll become that North Star for kids coming up today. Something to strive for, like they once strived to work in Sports Illustrated. It's a new direction, but the same destination, to tell the best sports stories from a unique perspective. Something that can't be recycled or mass produced.